Wonderful. We'll just take another breath and let's very simply let you become the earth. Let's just let that happen. And whatever that is like for you, whatever that means to you, whatever perspective shifts, let's hold that space. And thank you, Mother, Father, God. Thank you, Archangels and Ascended Masters, for the perfect clarity, the perfect transformation, the perfect healing, the perfect peace that's here for each of us right now. Thank you to the angelic realm, the elemental realm, our ancestors, spirit guides, and guardian angels. We thank you for this opportunity for wonderful peace. So if we could just breathe into being the earth and noticing there's a core, there's all these different layers, there's all this motion on the surface, there's a lot of activity. If we could just notice that activity, let's just notice all these different beings having similar experiences and being in a different place with it. If we could just breathe in from the core of yourself, the earth, it's very simply let waves of assurance, waves of love, waves of healing, waves of clarity, waves of providing, waves of amplification go to all those inhabitants of you. So if we could just breathe in and just feel the message coming from the planet that is you to all those inhabitants who participate in the planet, the elephants, the human beings, the whales, the continents, the penguins, people in structures, people walking in nature, people looking at the stars and the sun. If we could just breathe in, and if we could feel a connection, and if we could, in fact, in that connection, in that awareness, dissolve any sense of separation. So dissolving person, whale, planet, person, just dissolving all those separations, air, water. And if we could just breathe in and notice the commonality that is here. And allowing everything to come to a consensus that life is good. If we could just breathe into all of that, and it's letting this fundamental space be present right now, and to feel the vibrancy of being a planet, the vibrancy of sharing this experience in this moment right now, and the wonderful connection that is here with everything and everyone. Okay, and if we could feel like friends coming forward, if we could feel the other planets communicating with you, if we could just notice sassy Saturn coming forward, if we could just breathe in, and indeed just notice like a whole solar system of friends, a constellation of friends, if we could notice the other planets communicating to you, we could just notice what Saturn has to say to you. We could just breathe in whether you feel this, see it, hear it, or know it. Whether it's slight or profound, let's just notice this communication. If we could notice the presence of help in the absence of competition, if we could also notice that the conversation, the clarity is the shared experience of being planets rather than differences. How many moons do you got? That's not the conversation. We could just breathe into the commonality, the clarity, and the bonding that is here. We could just breathe in. And let's indeed notice the shared experience. And if we could let the other planets act like guides, if we could just notice what Jupiter wants to communicate to you. If we could value Pluto and let Pluto communicate to you. And if we could notice the planets moving out of their normal orbit to circle and gather with you, the Earth. Wonderful. If we could also notice joining all the planets, the presence of Mother, Father, God, and also including the sun. So if we could notice Mother, Father, God, and the sun participating in this gathering. If we could notice that every planet, and every being has tremendous value, complementary skills that add together to create a wonderful whole. And the key energy, the key emotion, the key word being value. If we could just breathe in to the inherent value of being the earth and being friends with Mars and Mercury. Neptune, the sun. And if we could indeed just notice this gathering, this constellation, if we could just notice whether we see it, feel it, hear it, or know it, what Mother, Father, God communicates. And if we could notice the sharing that happens, the sharing of wisdom, the sharing of help and hope, the sharing of strengths, the pure generosity in the relationship between all the different planets, the sun and Mother, Father, God. Nothing is withheld, nothing is hidden. Generosity abounds. If we could just feel into all those dynamics at play. And like a duplication of this constellation of the planets that we're familiar with, if we could just notice perhaps right next to this constellation of planets, there being a whole gang of archangels. And if we could notice them communicating in the same way, everything is about sharing, helping, generosity. If we could feel that modeling duplicated twice, if we could just breathe in and let that model of help, cooperation, affirmation, shared strengths, just very simply let that model go to all the inhabitants of the planet Earth. And if we could notice very simply, as all this is transmitted to all the inhabitants of the earth, that all this is given freely with unconditional love. There is no humanness about it. The humanness might say like, well, how come you don't know that already? Let's just release the humanness. Let's very simply let every inhabitant of the planet feel the generosity of this moment, the clarity and the peace that exists in galactic communication, in solar systems and systems of friends and family and strangers. If we could just breathe into all that goodness being present right now, like a cluster of different kinds of trees and plants sharing a space we might call a garden or a forest. So if we could just breathe into all that, and if we could distinctly notice the absence of judgment in you being the earth, Mercury being Mercury, the sun being the sun, Mother, Father, God being Mother, Father, God, we could just notice that along the line. Noticing very simply how distinct each planet is. Venus And we'll just notice all this goodness and all this peace being here right now. All this love and all this joy being here right now. And just lovingly just breathe into all that. And if we can notice what is activated in this space, with you being the earth, surrounded by friends. And indeed, if we can notice and perhaps feel the bigness of this moment, wonderful. And we'll notice the presence of Mother, Father, God. And if we could let Mother, Father, God bless, like Diksha, like an anointment, a blessing. You could just feel Mother, Father, God blessing you and all the other planets. And at the same moment, blessing all the inhabitants of each planet, all the energies, all the different things affiliated with the planets, like moons and rings. And we'll just breathe in. Wonderful. And as the soul that is you, let's let the earth be the earth. Let's just notice what it's like to hop over from one gang to the next. Let's notice what it's like to be an angel like Archangel Michael or Archangel Ariel, one of the angels that you know by name. If we could just breathe in and just adopt into being that archangel. If there's a default one, it's Archangel Michael. Excuse me. And if we could just breathe in and just notice what that's like. And if we can indeed, perhaps with a little bit of physicality, perhaps a little bit of a stretch, we could just notice what it's like to be an archangel. What it's like to inhabit unconditional love and see everything, encounter everything through the lens of unconditional love. And if we could notice the generosity of unconditional love, so all the inhabitants of the planet Earth, all the people, including people that we know, we could just notice from the angel's point of view, the generosity. There is no space of like, ho, 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 those silly fools. There's very simply, there is connection, there is love, there is affection, there is affinity, there is incredible care. If we could just breathe in and notice what it's like to be an angel connected with all these different beings, like a symphony, or indeed a garden, and to love them all. And to perhaps feel the delight of noticing those people who are listening, who are eager to connect, where there's an open door. So if we could just breathe and notice that connection, or the excitement of being an archangel and noticing someone with the door open, if we could just breathe in, and as the archangel, let's notice what it's like to communicate through that open door. In the simplicity of this connection. Wonderful. And just in this moment of connection, let's let the archangel be the archangel and you be you. And if we could just notice two things happening at once, if we could notice Mother, Father, God, and the archangel you're working with, or just were, be that Michael, Ariel, or a different one, if we could notice the two of them together, Mother, Father, God, and that archangel, release, acknowledging any exhaustion you might feel and helping to heal anything contributing to that exhaustion, the pull of other people's energy, responsibility, obligation, overwhelm, complication, guilt. We could just take in a breath and let Mother, Father, God, and this archangel relieve you of those dynamics, and allowing yourself to fully be the human that you are, with your dexterous ability to inhabit different spaces, your empathy, your ability to morph and transform, your ability to change, and your ability to heal. So let's notice all these good things being here right now, all this goodness, and the perfect peace that is here. And like taking off an overcoat, if we could notice that overwhelm, that exhaustion, that fatigue moving away. And for great things to happen. And if we could very simply notice Archangel Michael popping the bubble of persistence, the idea that we have to constantly be vigilant, we have to constantly persist in protecting ourselves. If we could notice that bubble popping, and maybe not so much like pop, but a slow leak, and recognizing what it's like to be connected with angels, Mother, Father, God, all the other angels and guides and goddesses, and to allow our sense and experience of faith and trust to increase 1% more, 5% more, and to allow anything that creates that hypervigilance and persistence, any belief that we're constantly not safe, letting those things diminish and letting more faith and trust be established. And if we could feel that empowerment being global. And indeed, if we could take this moment to practice receiving goodness, letting go of fear, embracing trust. And if you could notice what it's like as we do that, for you to be uniquely yourself. And we can amplify that very simply by taking in a breath and saying our own names out loud. I am Mark. I'm not someone else. Thank you, angels, for helping me in every part of my life. Thank you, angels, for helping everyone I'm aware of. Thank you, angels, for helping everyone I'm aware of. Including loved ones and animals. Wonderful. If we could observe Archangel Michael doing something and showing something very specific, we could notice, let's say if someone's in a hospital, let's notice Archangel Michael standing there and helping everything to flow for the highest possible good. So any energy that is being spent in a way that's a diversion from what's actually happening, any fretting, any fear, creating a space of hope, the highest good, generosity and peace, and just feeling the angel helping everyone, doctors, nurses, medical staff, patients, family, administrators. Just notice the highest good happening. And with that specific example of help, let's notice there being room for good news. Let's let that good news also come to us, and perhaps generating our own good news by noticing the open doors, to embrace unconditional love and to notice all the good that is present right now. And with incredible generosity and peace, if we could just breathe in. And with Archangel Michael specifically, if we could notice him getting really close to you with perhaps either clasping hands, his hand on your heart or his hand on the back of your neck, we could just notice him making contact with you with gestures of strength that mirror his commitment to you. And indeed, in our own lives, in your life, if we could feel the perfect doors being wide open, doors of compassion, connection, being seen and heard, abundance, creativity, identity, fun, miracles, praise, perfect balance of giving and receiving. Let's notice all these doors being open. And if we could say out loud in acknowledgement, I notice the open doors. I allow the highest good to happen. I walk through the doors of my choice. I drop out of all fights. I drop out of right and wrong. I align myself with harmony. And I trust peace. Thank you. Wonderful. So if we could just breathe into all that. Wonderful. Like a best friend, if we could indeed notice Archangel Michael looking directly at you, whether you feel that, see that, hear that, or know that. Let's just notice him checking in, like, how's that? How do you feel? And just feeling his charming care for you. And if we could indeed let him get even closer to you. And if we could perhaps just experience that, this Archangel Michael choosing, asking to get even closer to you, let's let him. And if we could say out loud, thank you, Archangel Michael, for your presence. Thank you, Mother, Father, God, for your presence. Thank you, archangels, for being part of my life. Thank you, fellow planets, for existing and for being my friends. Thank you, Earth, for being my home. Thank you. Wonderful. If we could do one last thing before we conclude, if we could just, whatever it means to kind of shake things out, be that with some vigor or just twist, whatever it is, just let things shake out. Perhaps just recognizing how alive you actually are in this moment. all this goodness, all this grace, all this joy, and wonderful things being present. And with devotion and happiness, we say out loud to all the different guides and for this experience, thank you so much. I am right on time. Thank you, Mother, Father, God. Thank you, archangels and ascended masters, for all the goodness, all the peace, all the love, and all the joy that is here right now as we celebrate life. We celebrate life. We celebrate life. We're so grateful for all this goodness and all this peace. We're so grateful for the generosity that exists, that we participate in as we celebrate life right now. And with wonderful joy, perfect peace, and landing in the perfect place at the perfect time, we ask for this or something better right now in all directions of time. And so it is.